Beautiful, beautiful. Good morning, folks. This is Karen from Journey Beyond Divorce, and I have a guest with me today. I'm just 1 second. I'm just waiting for Instagram. Here we go to go live with us. Beautiful. So, welcome to day 9 of my 21-day live. And today I have with me Rachel Sloan, who is a divorce coach for men. And we're talking to you, the husbands and the dads who are facing divorce. And you have unique challenges and a unique journey. And we really want to honor you in that conversation today and talk a little bit about how you can support yourself and support your kids navigating divorce. Welcome, Rachel.
Thank you, Karen. It's really wonderful to be here live with you today. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the first thing I'm going to say is there's a ton of people who divorce, and there are so few of us who support the men. And so meeting and finding you, Rachel, has been such a beautiful experience for me. And I know that you're helping so many men navigate this. And I think this is such an important conversation to have. And there are so many beautiful divorce coaches out there who help women, but most of the women are divorcing men and they need support too. And so here we are to do our piece to support you. And one of the things I want to kind of say right off the bat is there's 2 different groups of you, big category groups of you. And that is those of you whose spouse decided to divorce. And so you've been left. And then there are those of you who have made the difficult decision to leave. And so even within husbands and dads, there's some very specific challenges for each category. Would you agree, Rachel?
Absolutely. And it was really interesting to me just recently, Karen, to realize that I tend to work mostly with men who have been left. And I was surprised to learn that you work mostly with men who have chosen to leave. So we really do already speak to and work with those different demographics. And you had pointed out to me that you're noticing some of the challenges I share that my clients are facing are a little bit different than the ones that yours are facing because of that distinction.
Absolutely. Yeah, and let's jump in. And can you just kick us off with a couple of those top level challenges that you see most of your clients and your followers facing?
Yeah. Well, so, and I think a big piece of it when you didn't choose the divorce, when you're somebody who was left, is this a lot of shock, surprise, and just there's this time period, often of a couple of months, that it takes for a lot of the men I work with to just process and digest that this is really happening. Yeah. And during that time, they tend to be in such a fight or flight response. And it can be a really difficult time for them because usually the spouse that's leaving has thought about this, has processed it, is like ready for things to happen. And they're kind of pushing for the divorce to go through and financial decisions and custody decisions. And a lot of the men I work with are like, whoa. Like, can we not go to marriage counseling? Like, is there really no chance? And so there's a lot of shock that they're dealing with initially. And then right on the tail of that, a lot of grief. Yeah. And for fathers in particular, so much of that is focused around how this is impacting their children. And so that's one of the big challenges I see a lot of the men I work with just kind of butting up against is they see the negative impact it's going to have on their kids. And they have a lot of fear, a lot of anger around that as well.
Yeah, and it makes so much sense. One of the things I talk to all parties about is how, that you have a right, regardless of what the other person wants, you have a right to honor a pace that works for you, right? And grief just is not something that you can rush along. So that initial shock and devastation, and to your point, right, I was the spouse who chose to leave, right? And so I was on the fence for years. And so my grief was this slow, tried, said, and finally, oh my God, I have no choice. And so many of your clients are dealing with spouses who they're like ready to go now. Let's like get this going. But especially when you don't understand grief, it's like you can't expect a human being to operate in any functional way
No.
when they're sideswiped by like an emotional 18-wheeler in many ways.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly how they feel. But I would think that it's got to be challenging as well from the side of the spouse who's made the choice to leave, because I think a lot of times they feel like they've been trying. And so there's a whole emotional fallout there. And that's one of the things, I think speaking to you is going to be really valuable for some of the men I work with, because from their perspective, sometimes it feels like, oh, she's just fine and this isn't impacting her and it's all so easy and she just moves on into this new life like there's no problem. But the reality is that, in this case, I say she, but for a lot of your clients, the men who have made the difficult choice to leave as well, it's not that it was just all like sunshine and roses and easy for them. That was I don't think anyone leaves a marriage easily without a lot of grief and emotional pain.
Absolutely. And that's something that I speak about so much to both the men and women, is that it's the biggest decision you're ever going to make. And even more so when you're a parent, right? Because I'm not just deciding what's best for me, is what's best for me bad for my kids, and the person who's being left and doesn't think that it should be over is like, yeah, damn sure it's bad for the kids. How could it not be bad for the kids? And so that feeling of the person who's making the decision to leave, that you're holding all of these human beings' lives in your hands, and how do you make this big decision? And yet, if it's been a long time and there's been one attempt after another, and so many of us have such broken communication going through our marriage and our difficulties, that I might think I have been crystal clear, and my spouse is like, what are you talking about? I thought you were just upset about like that thing. I didn't realize it was this big thing, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like until she's actually leaving, it's like, wait. I did not realize, like, yes, sure, we had some problems, but not of this scale. And especially if there hasn't been a big transgression, if there hasn't been cheating or violence or an addiction, a lot of times that's really hard for them to grasp, that anything other than something that catastrophic could end.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Karen, I have a question for you. I'm curious, with the men you work with who have chosen to leave and those fathers, do they get worried about the divorce statistics? Because that's one of the kind of thought patterns that I see a lot of the fathers I work with kind of getting really hung up in, that actually makes it harder for them to be there for their kids, is they get kind of freaked out by the statistics online that say how bad divorce is for kids. And they start, and they see all these statistics that like children of divorce are more likely to do badly in school and have unhealthy relationships and get divorced themselves and have these emotional problems. Is that something that your clients bring to you or worry about, or do you not see that as much?
Well, so another distinction for your clients and mine is that we specialize in high conflict. And so most of the men that I'm working with have been in relationships where there has been this power imbalance, even if they're the primary earner and really successful, an emotional power imbalance where they feel that they've been berated and belittled and manipulated and intimidated. And because of their family of origin, they could be a rock star out in the professional world, just like the women I work with. And then and that's how I was. And then behind closed doors, I was this broken, diminished version of myself. And so their fear is often, if I leave, will the children be safe with the other parent? Should I stay simply to protect my kids? And so it's such a valuable conversation to have. To your question, I believe so firmly that children can emerge from divorce really whole and healthy. And even the high conflict divorces I deal with, if one parent is emotionally tuned in, present, doing their own work, keeping the focus on themselves and the kids instead of kind of like bashing or worrying or focusing on the other parent, when difficulties come up, you have an opportunity to either help your child navigate the difficulties or to call your ex or soon to be ex and just like criticize them, which if you couldn't control things during the marriage, you've got no control there anyway. And so I think that I talk a lot about how do you single parent in a way that heals and raises your children up?
Yeah, Karen, I love the way you just shared that. I agree 100%. And that's, I often tell my clients about some of the attachment science research in this area. Because it's really quite beautiful. It demonstrates that if children have just one adult in their lives they have what is the acronym CARE, consistently available, responsive, and emotionally engaged.
Oh, I love that.
And it's not, a lot of my guys kind of freak out because they're like, well, I can't be consistently available, right? Because I only see my kids this little piece of time. But it's not that's not what the available means. It means when you're with them. Right. When you're with them, that you're available, like, that you're not, focused on what your ex is doing with her new boyfriend or worrying about that you're with them in that moment. But, the studies on the attachment part shows that like even a coach or a teacher or somebody who only sees the children for, a couple of hours a week can be that emotionally attuned adult. And that if a child has one, that's really all it takes for them to develop all of those healthy, secure attachment patterns. And what I see the pattern that I think hurts a lot of fathers, especially when they've been left and they feel disempowered, is they get so caught up in their fear of how the divorce is going to affect the kids. And they feel so powerless, and they spend all their energy either being angry at her or worried about what she's doing, that they're so distracted by that, they can't be emotionally present with their kids when they do have them. And so they're actually, because they're so caught up in the worry, they're not able to give their kids this amazing gift that they could, and the thing that they really need.
And I would even say that so often my stay-at-home moms, and I was a working mom, but I felt the same way. I was like, I did everything for the kids, so my spouse couldn't. So I had this belief that he couldn't. So when we were negotiating, I was negotiating from a faulty foundation. And so to the men listening, if you're being told that you can't parent, you don't get up with the kids, you don't put them to bed, you're not, but your division of labor perhaps has been going out and making the money and bringing it home, and mom's division of labor has been that doesn't mean you can't. However, if you then are in it and you're so focused on what she's doing wrong and why you're upset, then you're actually not doing the very thing you want to prove to yourself, your kids, and everybody else that you can do. And so it's so vitally important that if you're insecure about your parenting, all the more reason to dive in and just engage with these human beings that you brought into the world. I have one client who was told for, I guess, the last 12 to 14 years what a bad parent he was. And then he would talk to me about the way he would think about his children and the things that he would do. And I was like, you sound like an awesome dad. And then he had opportunity finally to start having his parenting time. And it was amazing. The feedback he got from his children, the feeling that he had that I could do this. I actually can do this. And so it required him to be fully present there and putting everything else out of his mind during his time with his kids, which is what you're saying.
Yeah. And it's hard to do when you have all that doubt, right? When you've been being told all of these negative things. And I think it's hard to do, and maybe it's a response to that doubt. I see a lot of dads who feel like that time they do have has to be so perfect, right? Like they have to have like the best plans and the kids have to have the best time. But I would imagine with your group that often the other piece is harder, right? The time when they don't have the kids and they're afraid what is happening at the other home.
Yeah, I've actually spoken to numerous men who just decided to stay. And one of the things, just in case anyone's listening, just a little bit on that, if you're in a truly toxic or dysfunctional, unhealthy marriage, then what you're teaching your children is that this is intimate love. And so if you're not holding hands, if you're not having soft moments, if there is no hugs, if there is nothing that looks like intimate love, or in my case, if there's a lot of fighting and arguing going on, that's what my children grew up knowing as intimate love. And so while you think staying is better, you're going to be a more sound and healthy individual living under a separate roof. Your time with your children will be sound and healthy, and you can be more capable of supporting them if they do have another parent who is difficult. And so short term, it may seem like the best thing to do is stay to protect them, but it really doesn't pan out that way in the long run.
Yeah. Oh gosh, what a just brutally difficult choice.
Yeah.
Karen, when you were saying that, something that came up for me was that, a lot of the guys I talk to worry about the new parent, the new boyfriend, the new stepfather, and they feel that they're going to be replaced. And a lot of times they feel like, she's kind of taken their whole life and they're like this removable cog that's been taken out and she's just putting somebody else in there. But one of the things that I was thinking when you were talking about what intimate love looks like is that it actually, from the children's perspective, to have either or both parent in a healthier relationship, to have more examples of love, of affection, of care, can only be a positive thing.
Yeah. And so you don't know, what's going on in the other household. You don't know what that relationship is like. I would 100% agree that if your co-parent is bringing a partner in early on, that it's just very confusing for the children and that they're probably going to have a lot of reaction. But if time has gone by, then that's also, right, the person's opportunity to be healing so that they're not so triggered by that. One of the things I say to people is, the front windshield is so big and the rear view mirror is so small. Like, let's not be focused on that because there's so much going forward. But when you're in grief and when you're stuck in, I can't see a future because I just want my past, that's really important work to do. And that goes for men and women. And I do want to just touch on a few more things that are I feel are very specific to men. Like, I just feel like in society, and I know you and I just recently had a podcast go live on Journey Beyond Divorce. So, folks, please check that out. We had a more extensive and different conversation. But that piece that, as a man, it's like you're raised in a society where you should have a stiff upper lip, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, only sissies cry, and all this other bullshit. And then as a result of that, like, women have so much support. Their girlfriends will sit and listen to them. We talk about emotions all of the time. There are so many support groups for women going through divorce out there. And so the men are really put in this, support is such a vital piece. And then there's so few divorce coaches supporting men. And so it really diminishes their ability to do the work and to emerge healthy and whole.
It does. And I think it plays, it's even harder, I think, for single dads, because women tend to have these more extensive support networks already. There's all kinds of programs and access to care. I have a couple of men that I work with right now who have young kids, and mom, there's one in particular, mom doesn't work and she doesn't really want to have their son and he wants to be with dad. But dad works full time. He doesn't have any family. He doesn't have an extensive network of friends. He is really isolated, and childcare is a huge issue for him. And so not only is all of that isolation present and making it difficult to do the internal and emotional work, but now you're also trying to raise a child without any external support. And I think maybe that gets underestimated a lot too, how isolated single fathers are, not just emotionally, but actually in raising their children. And other dads feel, they go to the sporting events or the extracurricular activities, and they're always like, there's all these moms, and I feel like such an outsider to all of these moms that are there. And so there's isolation all throughout that parenting process for dads that I think is really overlooked.
Yeah, I had one client who said, like, I don't even know how I'm going to do this. Like, all the moms are on the text, trail, and they're all like making the play dates, and like, how do I even, and they're all my soon to be ex's girlfriends. And so how do I break into that? And am I just going to be like the bad guy? And it is. So it's isolating on many different fronts, and finding support like you, like me, what we offer, and even groups is so important. You do a group, don't you?
Yeah, I do. So I do an online group. And I have to say I have group calls and I have an online community, and the interactions in the community just every day make me smile, because the level of compassion and empathy and just emotional honesty that's happening there is really beautiful. But honestly, Karen, as powerful as that is, one of the things that I'm seeing a lot more of recently that I'm really loving is a lot of my clients are finding in-person men's groups that they can go to in their communities. And one of them was just sharing with me the other day, they do this beautiful thing in his men's group. They go around and each man just talks about what is happening in his life. And there's no coach present, and they do no advice, no guidance, but everyone in the group goes around and just says one thing that they saw. Like, I see your pain. I see that this is really a struggle for you. I can hear in your voice how hard this is. And that's it. They just tell their story. It gets acknowledged emotionally, and then they each go through, and those kinds of interactions between men, I think, are so. If people are in a place where they can find a men's group, it seems like there's more and more of these starting to pop up, and I'm just seeing such a powerful interaction and result from that with my clients who have access to it.
Beautiful.
Yeah, beautiful. It's very.
So I would love to just keep on chatting, but we agreed to keep this short. So you have something for anyone who's watching this live. So can you just share that, and then I'll share what I have.
Yes. So I have a free masterclass. It's called How to Take Back Control of Your Life After Divorce. And it's about an hour, and it focuses all on the biggest strategy, the one strategy that I've seen be really effective for my clients in taking back some control over their emotional experience as they're going through that roller coaster of shock, grief, anger, all of that, so that they can be really emotionally engaged and present with the people they love, whether that's their children, down the road, a new partner. And so I don't know, we can put that link in the description. We could drop it in the chat, but I'll share that link and make it available to your audience.
And we'll get that out to everybody. And I have something that is more specific for those of you who are emerging from difficult or toxic marriages. And it's a fresh start guide, and it really helps you to begin to pay attention to the voice in your head that isn't yours, your spouse's narrative, your spouse's perspective. And so it's about reclaiming your mind. And in order to be able to go through this process and stand in confidence and clarity, one of the very first things we need to do is make sure that we're thinking our thoughts, that we're focused on our values, our beliefs, our priorities. And so I'll drop that in the comment section for you folks as well. And we need to have another one of these conversations, Rachel, because there's just so much to tease out of these situations.
I would absolutely love that, Karen. It's I really enjoyed doing our podcast episode, and this has been really fun. There's, like you said, there's just so many levels of this to talk about. And I know men just don't get enough airtime on these subjects. There's not enough of these conversations. So thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. And we'll also pop the podcast link in the comments too. So anyone who's enjoyed this and wants to delve deeper into the topic, you'll be able to listen to our podcast together. Thank you so much for joining me, Rachel. And you folks have a great day. And I'll be back again with day 10 of my 21-day life.